thanks. You know? And I think that's a beautiful thing. We should be doing this year-round, not just one day a year, but all of the time. It's really spiritual practice. You know, people ask about, okay, what are spiritual practices? That is a spiritual practice, is to get up every day and give thanks every single day. In the morning, before you go to bed, just live in that state of gratitude. I love this Charles Dickens quote. It was in our program last week. We had a little bit different Sunday last week. So I don't know if you all saw the quote, but it says, reflect on your present blessings, of which every man has many, and not on your past misfortunes, of which all men and women have some, or many. And you know that where you put your focus and where you put your attention makes all the difference, doesn't it? So, thanks and giving. In everything give thanks. This is a little bit of review. In everything give thanks. Notice it doesn't say for everything give thanks. Because there are, unfortunately, those things that happen to us that maybe we're not feeling so grateful about the particular thing. But we can always find something to be grateful for within whatever that circumstance might be. And I think that's an important distinction. Right? Because you may say, well, I'm not grateful for the divorce, or I'm not grateful for losing the job, or whatever that is. But you can still find things within those circumstances to be grateful for. And gratitude in good times simply maintains the status quo. It just keeps life going as it is. We all should be thankful all of the time. But if you really want to grow, it's giving gratitude when times are difficult. That is what evolves you. That is what grows you as a person, right? Is to give gratitude, to find those things to be grateful for, even when things don't look the way you want them to look. Even when they're looking like it shouldn't be this way. Find something to be grateful in that, and it changes everything. See, Thanksgiving is not just a reaction. It's not just a reactionary emotional. It is a causative energy. It can generate joy. It can generate love. It can generate all of the good things that you're looking for by being grateful, even and especially when you don't feel like it. You see, it's a cause and effect kind of a thing. We think that we give gratitude when things go well, but when you give gratitude when things are not well, it puts a new cause in motion. So let our lives, all of that was review. We talked about that already. Let our lives be full of both thanks and giving. Thanks and giving. Notice it's not Thanksgiving. Like Black Friday the next day, right? That would be like we're celebrating the Thanksgiving holiday. We want our lives to be full of thanks and giving. And that's the transition here. Because I think when we live in that space of gratitude, it's natural to want to give, don't you think? When you just feel so grateful for what is, for what is in your life and how good things are going, it's a natural reaction to want to give. But the world doesn't really support that. Instead, the world kind of supports this other idea here. How many of you know that phrase? WIIFM. That's what we're transmitting all the time. Anybody know that phrase? What's in it for me? Right? We're all in that what's in it for me channel. I'm surprised more of you don't know that. Because if you've ever been in sales, or if you've ever been in marketing, you know that's the thing that you have to get across to your crowd, is what's in it for them. Because that's what we want to know. That's the place we live from. Right? For the most part, I would say that's what the world is teaching us, is you've got to be looking out for number one. What's in it for me? Where's the thanks in that? And we want to change that up a little bit. And I think it was John Kennedy who said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Right? That's leadership. What can I do? How can I give? How can I serve? That's where we make the shift from what's in it for me to what can I do. I was trying to find a really cool acronym, but I just couldn't find anything. There used to be remember when people would wear the little bands that said WWJD? What would Jesus do? Yeah. I'm looking for something cool like that. So if y'all can think of something to change that from what's in it to me to what can I give? How can I serve? How can I use my gifts for the greater good. And your whole life changes when you live from that perspective. And giving, you know, I like to teach from the different aspects of life, of how do we know the things we know? I've done several talks on this. How do we know the things we know? We know from observation, right? This kind of scientific knowing from what is happening around you. You can know from logic and reason, right? You can think things through, and even if you can't see the result, you can sit with someone else and logically work things through and understand why you know what you know. Then there's intuitive knowing. That's the knowing that comes from just something inside of you, and you don't know how you know it. You just know that you know it. Right? Can you all relate? Yeah. So what we teach here comes from all those different aspects of knowing. In other words, it has to work in the real world for your observation. It has to make sense, and it has to feel right. And it has to be spiritually sound. So we teach from all those different aspects. And so this is, you know, when I talk about giving thanks and gratitude and giving, there is actually science now that backs that up. Isn't that cool?
That's so cool.
Right? There are people, this field of positive psychology where people are studying this stuff. So this was an article I found, and it came out of UC Berkeley, I think, from the Greater Good magazine. And it says, often we make gratitude sound like it's all about us. In the domain of self-help, we hear that gratitude is the single most important ingredient to living a successful and fulfilled life, or that when we're grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. So they're talking about self-help books like that's not really scientific, was my take on that paragraph. But the very next thing says, in fact, research does support the idea that gratitude helps people who practice it. They report fewer physical symptoms of illness, more optimism, greater goal attainment, and decreased anxiety and depression, among other health benefits. Now, is that a surprise to anybody?
No.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, because gratitude and despair or other negative feelings are kind of mutually exclusive. You really can't be in gratitude and be in despair at the same time. Then it goes on to say at the end of the article, gratitude seems to prepare the brain for generosity. Counting our blessings is quite different than counting cash, because gratitude, just as the philosophers and psychologists, and I would add spiritual sages, predict, all of that points us toward moral behavior, toward reciprocity, and the feeling of wanting to pay it forward. Apparently, our brain literally makes us feel richer when others do well, especially when we have something to do with it. Right? If we have done something to contribute to the well-being of others, it makes us feel good. We're wired for that. Apparently, our brain literally makes us feel richer when others do well. Perhaps this is why researchers have observed that grateful people give more. Gratitude might be good for us, but it is good for others as well. You see, it causes a ripple effect. The gratitude, while it makes us feel awesome, right, it ripples out unto others. And go with it. I say go with it. Don't tell yourself, well, you know, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? I feel like volunteering here, but I only have so many hours, and I can't see a direct correlation between my doing that volunteer work and what's in it for me. Right? So some people might even stop you. I mean, I have people who love me very much and say, now, why do you do all that volunteer? Are you getting paid for this? Are you getting paid for that? Why would you do that if you don't get paid like dollars? You know? Well, that's another story. I'll elaborate on that a little bit more, but it puts a new cause in motion. As I said, it puts a new cause in motion, right? Gratitude, giving, we're setting new cause in motion. I love this graphic here, and I've used it before. I don't know if any of you remember it. Giving activates receiving. I think of the pot-bellied stove and how so many of us are kind of looking at life and saying, well, I'll give when I have more. I'll give when I win the lottery. I'll give when I get that new job. I'll give when somebody gives to me. Now imagine if we did that with the pot-bellied stove. I'll give you some wood when you give me some heat.
Okay.
Right? Does it work that way?
No.
No, we have to put the cause in motion. But actually, if you think about it, the cause has already been set in motion because we have everything we already need. We have been given everything that we need to live the lives that we want to live already. Right? This world existed way before you and I came along.
Yeah.
It's going to continue when we're no longer here. But we kind of got dropped into this place, with everything that we need, but somehow we forget. Somehow we forget that. So the cause has already been set in motion. We've already been given. Right? We've been given life. We've been given intelligence. We've been given understanding. We've been given all of these resources. Now for us to keep that in motion, we have to keep giving. Right? Giving from your joys, from your loves, from your passion, from whatever it is you have. That's what we're talking about today. Ernest Holmes said this, who is, for those of you who are newer, he's the founder of this movement we call Centers for Spiritual Living, and what we teach here, which is the science of mind. And he said, we should give of ourselves in love and in service to others. To refuse to give is to refuse to receive, for everything moves in circles. Real giving is the givingness of self. Everything moves in circles. Remember that cause and effect. Everything is in circle. If you're not receiving, if you're not living an abundant life, there's some way that circle is being stopped. And it's not happening out there. That's just a little clue. It's happening in whatever you're doing or not doing. Right? Because the circle is already in motion. It is up to you to keep it in motion. Right? So giving activates receiving. The Bible says it too. So we have the science piece of it. Now we have the spiritual piece of it. The Bible says this, give and it will be given you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, as Gail shared with us this morning in her meditation. It will be poured onto your lap, for with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. What does that sound like?
Yeah.
Karma, right? Give and you receive, reap and you sow. I mean, it's all of that. It's in all of our spiritual literature. It's in nature. Everything is in cycles. Everything circles. We have to do our part to keep things in motion. That means it's for us to keep giving. Not about what's in it for me. That causes stagnation. That has everything at what's in it for me. It comes here and it stops here. Yes. Right? So maybe I have a huge bank account, or, like people who are with hordes of stuff. Right? It's all for me. What's in it for me? If you want to get more, start putting that stuff into flow. Start giving. Oops. I didn't want to go there so fast. What we want to do is create a vacuum. We call this the law of circulation, and when you give from that space, you create new space for new things to come in. So if you're wanting some new clothes, give clothes. If you want money, give money. If you want friendship, give friendship. If you want love, give love. And it puts all of that into motion. And if you want to supercharge your life, and this is the time of year where we're talking about giving gifts, and people get stressed out about all the money they've got to spend and all of that. And I know that this center as a whole, I would say, has been going through some financial turmoil here. We've had some situations here. So I feel like this is something for us as a group to really address and to really look at, that if money is the situation for you, if you feel like you don't have enough abundance flowing in, then it is time to supercharge that and start to tithe. Start to tithe. That's the magical word. Talking about spiritual practice, this is another spiritual practice right here, is tithing. How many of you are familiar with that term? Raise your hand if you know what that's all about. It's not hardly anybody's favorite thing to talk about until you get in the practice of doing it. And then that changes things up. What is a tithe? Tithe is 10% of the first fruits. That means whatever comes into your home. If you find a $10 bill while you're out there, you want to tithe $1 on that 10 that you found. If you win that lottery, 10%. Right? of whatever comes in. That's what a tithe is. It's 10%. And the nice thing is that you get to keep 90. Isn't that? Y'all don't think that's a good deal? Okay. What does it mean to tithe? It means that you give where you're spiritually fed. You give where you are spiritually fed. I hope for all of you here that that's this place. But this is not just a pitch to make money. It's not about that, because I have done this work here for no money. For no money I did for a long time. But we need to give where we're spiritually fed. So for some of you, maybe that's the animal shelter. Right? For others, maybe it's a peace building center. Maybe it's Big Sky Retreat. Maybe it's the waitress who sat and just gave you awesome service, patted you on the back, who noticed you were a little bit down and made you smile. Tied to that person. Tied to wherever you are spiritually fed. This, again, is not a plea for money here. It is a plea for you to get those channels going and get that flow moving in your life. In your life. Give where you are spiritually fed. It doesn't have to be here. I hope that it is. I hope that it is. And if it's not, tell me why. Tell me what we're doing wrong, or how we can change things up. Because this is a place that for me has been the place that I have always come to plug in. I've had people who came to the center and after a little while, maybe a couple of years of being here, would say, well, you know, it's just not really doing anything for me anymore. Okay, that's great. But what are you doing? Right? What are you doing to keep this thing in motion? How are you giving of your gifts? How are you giving of your talents? How are you giving of your money? That's the question that I would ask now. That when they were telling me that before, I didn't know to ask that. It was like, I guess it's not working for you. See ya. You know, what can I say? What can I say? But if it is building you, if it is growing you, if it gives you that boost that you need to get through your week, or when you're going through tough times, you support this place. Support it so that it can keep being here. I would love to be the full-time minister here again. I would love that. I love my job. I love what I'm doing. Don't get me wrong, right? But I would love to be here on a full-time basis, and I can't do that if the money is not flowing. So this is something for all of us. For all of us. As you do better, I do better. As I do better, you do better. And we just keep this evolving thing going. So we give where we're spiritually fed. Tithing, I'm calling it Faith Training 101. Why is that? Because it acknowledges God as our source. Not your job, not your spouse, not your trust fund. That's not your source. Spirit is your source. That's why a couple of months ago, when it was very clear that I was not going to be able to get paid here, I had I always have that knowing anyway, that I'm always taken care of. I am always taken care of. This place is not my source. My husband's not my source. Spirit is my source. And when I stood here and I let you all know, let the congregation know, don't worry about me. I'm covered. I didn't know how. I didn't know what was going to happen. And the next day I get a job offer. How amazing is that? Right? Instant manifestation. And had I not stood here and said, I'm open to that, however Spirit wants to show up, I might have been offered that job and said, no, I can't do that. I can't do that because I'm here, at the center, trying to build this thing. But no, I was open to it, and Spirit is now blessed me, right, so that I can continue to bless others and be that testament. Right? So know that your job is not your source. Spirit is your source. Spirit is your source. And if you want to take your life to the next level and you step out in faith, and you may not know where that 10%, it's here, but that's scary, I'm on a fixed income. I don't know what will happen if I give that much money. Can I afford to do it? You have all those doubts, all that stuff that comes in. And that's not being in faith. We're in fear or we're in faith. You can't be in both. So I just put this out as a challenge to you all, to consider to do this. Make it an experiment for your life. We're going to start Prosperity Plus in January. Donna's going to be teaching it. And that is like the number one thing in Prosperity Plus is that you tithe 10% for the duration of the class. So you make it an experiment. Give yourself a reasonable amount of time. Say for 2 months or for the 10 weeks if you do Prosperity Plus, or even just on your own. I'm going to practice this and I'm going to see what happens. Right? 10%. And see what happens. That's where you start. It's Faith Training 101. Finally, tithing nurtures your awareness of abundance. Because I'm giving 10% of everything that comes in, I'm really paying attention to everything that comes in. And that's how I know I'm always taken care of. Always. Sometimes I look at what's coming in the bank and thinking, how the heck are we paying all of these things? It happens here frequently. With the amount of money that's coming in, how the heck are we covering our electric bill and our this and our that? Somehow Spirit always provides. It always happens as long as we're doing what's ours to do. And sometimes that requires that faith. Very often it requires that faith. Right? For me to take that position, not having all of the, I like to have things planned out a little bit. But I knew from the timing of how that worked that it was for me. And I took that leap. I took the leap of faith. And who knows where it goes from here? I live from that place of faith. For somebody to say, well, how long are you going to be at the River Phoenix Center? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be at least 1.5 years because that's what I committed to them. But beyond that, I don't know. I don't know. How long are you going to be the minister at Oprah? I don't know. Because I live by faith. I live by faith. It's so much easier. Because when I don't, it's painful. Really. Sometimes, and you all know, for those of you who know that struggle, I was hanging on like for dear life at this place. Oh my gosh, what happened? What's going to happen here? It can't go down on my watch. That can't happen. And what did Spirit do? But find a whole other way. A whole other way to keep things going and to take care of me at the same time.
What were you focusing on?
What was I focusing on? Good question, Gail. It was a little bit of ego. There was a little bit of ego, that feeling of, oh my gosh, this can't happen with me. It happened with somebody else, but it can't happen with me here. I mean, this is my place, right? This is where I found this teaching. That just can't happen. So there was a lot of that, and of course, and fear. Right? What would it look like? The ego fosters fear, exactly. What would it look like to other people? Just don't even want to think about it. But the thing is, we don't have to think about it, right? Because the truth of it is, again, this center was here before I was here. The center, my wish, my dream, my everything is that it continues way long after. Right? That this is this little beacon of light in Ocala, and that we're radiating out to all of these people. This place needs to be here. Mm-hmm. It needs to be here. And I very much want it. It's not a little beacon, and it is growing and growing. Yes, it is. Our influence is growing. We may be small in numbers, but we are large in influence. So tithing, again, nurtures your awareness of abundance. I know that as long as I'm doing what's mine to do, I am always taken care of. Without a doubt. And tithing is like my insurance policy. Mm-hmm. Right? I see people nodding, yes.
And you tithe of not just your money.
That's right. You tithe not just of your money, but you tithe of your time. You tithe of your talents. Sometimes people feel like, well, I'm going to tithe of my time, and that makes up the difference. But it doesn't. It really doesn't. We need to be tithing of our time, our talents, and our treasure. All of it. So this is what it says in the Bible about tithing. It's the one place in the Bible where God says, test me out. It's Old English, so bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and prove me now herewith. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and promise. That's a heck of a promise.
You've got pressed down and overflow.
There you go, right? God says, I'll prove it to you. Try me out. So we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. That was just an opportunity to put my little nugget in the slide. That's one of the grandbabies. That's what I did on Black Friday instead of go shopping. Hung out with the baby, and it's just all about giving, you know. Because I was giving, because I get paid. So that I'm getting paid now to do the volunteer work that I was doing. Amazing is that? Right? So for all of those who said, why are you doing that? Well, I had no idea a job was going to come out of it. I was just doing what was mine to do, and what was on my heart to do, and what was mine to share. And out of that came great blessing. Right? So don't let people put those doubts or those things, why are you giving so much? Or why do you give so much time? Or how could you give 10%? You have a different understanding. You're up to a different game. And try it out. Like an experiment. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever. Although you will find once you do it and you get that cycle in motion that you start to get excited about it. You get excited about the money and the things that are coming to you because you know you're going to get to bless other people through that. Everything that comes in is an opportunity to bless others. And that's the space we live from. Right? It's not about making a living. It's about creating a life. It's about creating a life that's worth your time, that's worth your energy, that's worth your attention. Right? Is this helpful for anybody? I don't know if I want to have you raise your hand, but challenge you all to take this idea on and give yourself a length of time that's going to give you enough time to see that it works. And we'll gather up and we'll have our testimonials. So that leads us to our affirmation.